Alright everyone, now it's time for the Occult video number 361, Satanic Cults, Real and Fake. We're going to cover this in some degree of depth here because, of course, for every finder's cult, you have, the local community rocked by the fact that little Jimmy just snapped a dog's neck after he listened to too much Iron Maiden and Ozzy Osbourne. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Over my years, especially back when I was more satanic, of course, I left that behind more than a decade ago. I'm an occultist, but I don't believe in Satanism because it's a vacuum. It's really just atheism with a floor show, and I wanted something more than that. I wanted to actually delve into spirituality, and they'll call you an occultnik if you try to do that, so had to leave Satanism in the Church of Satan sense behind. No, I was never a member, by the way. People always remark upon me being a member of some satanic order. That never happened. But I was contacted numerous times throughout my satanic period, and afterwards, I'd already abandoned that and gone into the occult and become a pagan, and I was still getting contacted by some of these people. Slightly odd. I have a feeling that some of these people may have glown in the dark. Just to be clear, I think that I had a couple of run-in with actual feds over time that were maybe perhaps more on the militant side when it comes to religious beliefs, sort of like an actual American Taliban. No, I'm not talking about Lauren Boebert deciding to own guns and Eric Swalwell creeping on her creepily after screwing a Chinese spy. There are actual cults out there, I wanted to tell people, and you should be very wary of them, that claim Satanism, Luciferianism, Prometheanism is thrown in there, paganism under Enki, and so forth. There are actual cults, and by cult, we're going to use the pejorative. I realize that it doesn't have to be used in that context. They do actually exist. Yes, there are groups of people out there that are largely socio-politically motivated in the paramilitary sense, but use devil iconography in one way or another. I've encountered some of these people, not in person, but online. I tried to keep an arm's distance, partially because, my Fed radar started going off, and I'm like, well, this group of people is encouraging me to, to look at their works and stuff, and it's all about torture and shit like that, and very nihilistic. This is certainly not the Church of Satan. It's certainly not any Enlightenment ideology that uses Satan as a sort of mock-up of the, the fall of Lucifer thing in the Enlightenment was basically, he tried to save people and he wanted to be free and stuff, and you've got this tyrannical God that wouldn't allow that to happen. That sort of almost poetic imagery is definitely an attraction to me because it's biblically cohesive. It fits in with my political worldview, which is that people should be left alone, do their own thing. If they're harming nobody else, they should be left to their own devices. And the hope is that the average person is at least capable of being rational. If we taught critical thinking to people instead of simply telling them how to memorize for tests in schools, we'd probably see a lot less violence and misery in the world, which is exactly why they don't do that, because that violence and misery makes for good CNN headlines now, doesn't it? The fact is, though, that beyond the finders and similar cults, which in some cases were devil worshippers or still are, and in most cases just used that symbolism, that is that they threw it in there ritualistically for shits and giggles, it seems, more than anything else. Spirit cooking is a good example. It's effectively a really weird Dadaistic postmodern art sort of thing. It doesn't, in my opinion, have anything to do with devil worship. It uses spooky imagery because, you look at the billionaires of society, they're all jaded, and they go through their midlife crisis, and they're willing to throw millions of dollars at someone who will deliver a real scare. It's almost like the equivalent of someone who's not massively wealthy going to the haunted house. Well, they expect it to be really, really haunted. They don't want just a few animatronics and jump scares. They want something more immersive. And you see the public moving towards this with VR right now. But however, most of the groups that have ever been claimed to be cults, whether satanic or not, simply aren't. In most cases, for instance, in the Satanic Panic, what you get is you get somebody tipping over graves in the graveyard, and they draw a pentagram on the wall of the drainage tunnel next to the cemetery. And then you find a couple of crucified cats there. What you're generally looking at is angsty teenagers who are off their rocker, clearly mentally ill, number one. Or you're looking at total edgelords, number 2, in many cases tied in with drug usage. Somebody just smoked a bunch of meth and then they went crazy and they thought it was a funny idea at the time. They got completely wasted on whiskey and decided to go to the graveyard and beat off on the tombs and spray swastikas everywhere. That doesn't make them a Satanist. It certainly doesn't mean they know anything about the devil. 9 times out of 10, these people have no understanding of religious history. They have no understanding, certainly, of the occult because they're not intelligent enough to understand it. Where you do get actual cult activity, and it is satanic at least in design. In most cases, it's not genuinely religious in any manner. That is, that it's a foil. It's a facade for the actual social message that's being promulgated. It tends to be political, often left-leaning, occasionally far-right. Some of these groups do still exist, by the way. Some of them actively investigated by the same feds that have already infiltrated them, and in some cases, again, I have a feeling, attempt to contact people like me to test us, to see, this person's dabbling in the occult. They say they were a Satanist before. Let's make sure that they're not going to start building pipe bombs. Let's offer them this semi-legal weapon and see if they buy it. Dude, this actually happens. You don't even, by the way, have to be a major influencer to get to the point where you're going to be contacted by people that do weird fucking shit. And in some cases, you're not going to be able to tell who's the psychopath and who's the fed. So, again, be very careful. There are dangers within the occult. I've written, a work on the subject. Charlatans will attempt to lead you astray. Many of these people, they'll be very friendly. They'll be very gregarious. You want to buy some nitrogen? You want to buy some sulfur here? I bet we can do great things with this. Hey, why don't you go to this federal building tomorrow? That's probably not your friend. They're not actually trying to help you summon the devil by killing a bunch of people. And so on cults in general, you have to, first again, we're using the pejorative term. A lot of groups are termed cults without actually being them. Like Scientology is a cult. They're just not deemed one in general parlance because they happen to be big and wealthy, and so you're not allowed to do that. A group of kids gets together, and they're spinning Led Zeppelin records backwards and torturing animals or something. That's not a satanic cult. It's cult-like behavior. It's objectionable. They really need to be put in the fucking loony bin. Genuine Satanism doesn't stress that. Genuine Prometheism doesn't. I know of no variant of paganism that stresses that. In any way, animal sacrifices, as far as religious stringencies around the killing of animals, you're looking more at most groups within Islam or Judaism or something. Satanic cults are rare, but they do exist. And they come in 2 forms. The more innocuous are people that actually believe the shit that they're peddling. Yeah, man, the devil's our father. We take LSD and we commune with him, man. Hey, let's go and beat a cat to death. That's somehow less bad than the Fed side of it, which is some group that's paramilitary and really wants you to become a fellow terrorist. And they're just using, fucking 666 or the cross of St. Peter or a pentagram is just their symbol, the Lucifer seal or something. Again, I've had run-ins with these people. Most of them are not the sort of people that you want to trust your spiritual development to, because they're not interested in that. They're interested in getting you thrown in a high-security prison after you attempt and fail to make a bomb according to some directions that they'll give you. So be very careful of them. That's about all. Peace out.